Morning, everyone. It's actually good to see a decent amount of people here. I was kind of worried, Saturday morning after Friday night might not have been too many. So, yeah, I was asked to come and talk about, wallets. How cold can it get? But, sometimes you have to think. In order to answer that question, first we have to ask a much simpler question. What is a wallet? Is a wallet a piece of hardware that, stores your private keys or, does something like that? Or, is it the software code which is running and is able to, broadcast transactions to the network and, take a look at the time chain and see what the transactions are? Or, is it literally just the private keys, maybe even stored as, some seed words written down on a bit of paper? And, well, yes and no to all of these. A wallet is and isn't all of these things. So why does it matter what a wallet is? Well, first and foremost, this one should be fairly obvious. I hope you've all heard, not your keys, not your coins. Your keys, your coins. If you don't know whether or how you are storing your keys, you can't in any realistic way say that your Bitcoin is secure. Another very good reason for understanding what a wallet is regulation. So there's a lot of different regulation out there being proposed in different parts of the world. And one, for example, called the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act, proposes to either ban or heavily regulate unhosted wallets. But it never describes what a wallet is. So how can you ban unhosted wallets if you don't know what a wallet is? All right, let's dive into that just a little bit. A wallet, when most people use the word, they're talking about some kind of system, not necessarily a device, not necessarily a piece of software, but some kind of system for doing some or all of the things that are listed here. Seed generation, so creating a random seed of data to produce keys from. Seed storage, holding on to that seed. Key derivation, figuring out the private keys from the seed. Building transactions, so actually taking all those pieces together in order to say, I want to send this amount of Bitcoin from this UTXO to this particular address or addresses. Signing transactions, using those keys to sign. Broadcasting them to the network, and of course, a lot of wallets are going to be displaying transactions. So they're reading data out of the Bitcoin time chain and displaying your previous transactions. Now, you can imagine, okay, I've got a wallet, it's doing all of these things. But a common scenario is you'll have two different things called a wallet. One of them is a cold wallet, a hardware wallet. One of them is a hot wallet of some kind, a software wallet. And you're connecting these two things together. And the hardware wallet is performing seed generation and seed storage and key derivation and signing transactions, while the software wallet is performing building transactions and broadcasting transactions and displaying transactions. So in a way, these two things together are your wallet, and you call both of these different things wallet. So the term can be very confusing. All right, now we've got a slightly better idea what a wallet is. Let's ask the question, what is missing from this particular slide? What do you see is not listed here? Well, something not listed here is storing Bitcoin. Wallets don't store Bitcoin. Wallets are a thing for interacting with the time chain, writing data to the Bitcoin time chain, reading data from the Bitcoin time chain. Bitcoin is stored on the time chain, not in a wallet. That's an important thing to keep in mind when you have multiple wallets looking at the same Bitcoin, the same UTXOs. So, what do people mean when they say hot wallet and cold wallet? Generally speaking, most people treat this as a simple dichotomy, where a hot wallet is a wallet of some kind which both stores the keys and can broadcast and can use those to sign and can broadcast data to the network. In that case, it's relatively easy for some kind of attacker to come in and perform signing and broadcasting together, which is obviously dangerous if you don't want them to. And a cold wallet is anything which doesn't do that. But I'd like to propose another way of looking at it. Instead of thinking about it as this dichotomy, think about it instead as an amount of how hot or how cold a wallet is. So a wallet could be colder or hotter than other wallets. And the criteria to measure that on is how accessible is it, or how easy is it to produce a valid transaction outside of the intended process. So there's a lot of kind of soft words in there, like intended process. But really, that's what you have to deal with, because we are dealing with human things here, and humans aren't purely mathematical beings. So let's ask then, let's give an example. What's the coldest possible wallet I can imagine? Or, what's a coldest possible wallet I can imagine? That would be beaming my private keys as pulses of light into a supermassive black hole. If I do that, then I will eventually, maybe, be able to retrieve my private keys through Hawking radiation as the supermassive black hole dissolves over the course of the next 10 to 100 years. The problem with doing that, of course, is that retrieving my private keys over the next 10 to 100 years is probably not what I want to do. I probably want to have access to my Bitcoin sometime before that. So, let's then talk about more realistic ways to secure your Bitcoin. So, most of the time when people talk about realistic cold storage, they talk about having some kind of seed words and some kind of cold storage device which they interact with. But you'll find people arguing constantly, what is the best way to do it? Should I use this particular hardware device which has an air-gapped system with QR codes? Or should I use this other air-gapped device which uses an SD card which I transfer between the computer and the device? Or can I just trust this device which I plug in via a USB cable because it's got some kind of secure system which stops the key being able to be sent out? All of these are considerations, and these are things that you kind of have to just think about for yourself. What are the appropriate ways to do it? But let's look at some common scenarios beyond just the single device and single seed being stored somewhere. So imagine first two different hardware wallets. One of them connects to the software wallet, or both of them connect to a software wallet, but one of them is designed in such a way that the software wallet says, hey, give me the private key, and the private key gets transferred to that software wallet, and it then performs the signing and broadcasts the transaction. Whereas another hardware wallet, the software wallet gives it an unsigned transaction, it performs the signing, and then gives the signed transaction back again. You're going to call one of these wallets much colder than the other, fairly obviously. Imagine another scenario, though, of a hardware wallet that doesn't store keys at all. Instead, every time you, and there is such a device, by the way, every time you plug it in and power it on, you have to re-enter the seed words in order to access, in order to sign any transactions and access your Bitcoin. Is that colder than either of the other wallets? Actually, I'm going to say it depends. Where do you store the seed that you enter every time you plug it in? If I write it down on a piece of paper and I keep both of those in the drawer, I keep the device and this piece of paper with the seed words written on it, that is in no practical way colder than the system where I have a hardware wallet which is storing the seed and perhaps behind some kind of password. In fact, I would say the one that's password protecting it on the device is colder. But if I took this seedless hardware device and I stored the keys far, far away and difficult to access with no obvious relationship between the two, then maybe it's colder. So again, think of how cold it is as being the ability to create transactions or valid transactions outside of the intended process. One very common way that people try to improve their security is a single-party multisig. Multisig takes many different forms. There's not enough time in this short presentation to go over all of the different options. Let's just talk about a so-called 2 of 3 multisig. So I need 2 keys out of 3 in order to access my Bitcoin. So I create a multisig arrangement, and I store my 3 keys separately. Now, in order to perform any transaction, I can go and get 2 of those keys and perform a transaction. So if one of them got lost, I don't have to worry about it. Or if one of them gets compromised, that person can't necessarily do anything bad with it. They need to get a second key. So that's a very simple single-party multisig. There are, of course, some disadvantages to multi-signature. On-chain, it's very visible. You can see that it's a multi-signature transaction when transactions are performed, and it takes up a little bit more space. So obviously, you pay in sats per byte for transactions, so you're going to be paying a little bit more, especially if you've had a lot of inputs. So you're constantly sending to your multisig arrangement. One day you want to send out. Maybe it's going to cost you a lot of money. But it is more secure in that way. So another possible arrangement is a multi-party multisig. Same kind of thing, except there are multiple people involved. There are different kinds of this again. So there are semi-custodial kinds of things where a custodian looks after one key, or there are actual true multi-party environments. For example, a board of directors of a company might each hold a single key, and we need a quorum of particular people to come together in order to sign something. It has similar kinds of advantages and similar kinds of drawbacks, but obviously the individual case kind of matters here as to which one you might end up choosing if you were to do that. Another option, and this, by the way, is actually one of my personal favorites for a very long time, is something called Shamir secret sharing. Shamir allows you to take any piece of data and break it up into an N of M arrangement, kind of like a multisig. So I can take a photo of this room and then break that up into pieces, and I need to get a quorum of those pieces in order to reconstitute that data. Rather than a photo of this room, imagine I do that to a single key. Right, with a single key broken up like that, I now have all of the advantages of a single signature. It doesn't look any different on-chain to any other transaction, but I have some of the same security by requiring a quorum of pieces in order to reconstitute it. One of the disadvantages of Shamir, of course, though, is because it is just a single sig, you might be subject to attacks on a single hardware device that you're reconstituting it into, which you won't necessarily have with multisig if you use multiple devices. And you can't do key rotation, which is a nice thing you can do with multisig if you lose one of the keys. That doesn't work with Shamir. So there's advantages and disadvantages, but personally, I'm quite a fan. Some of you sitting out there have probably been thinking, why is he not talking about Taproot? For those of you who know what Taproot is, it's a series, or it's a group of different functions all kind of put together. And through some of them, such as Schnorr signatures, you can enable something which is essentially multi-sig, but looks like single sig on chain, doesn't take as much space. Very nice kind of features. You can also have relatively complex scripts. So you can do things like have different keys being available at different times. But the disadvantage of Taproot is, of course, it's not particularly well known yet, and there's not a lot of wallets supporting it. You should, of course, always consider having multiple wallets. You should have a cold wallet, a hot wallet, multiple wallets, so that if one gets compromised, let's say my daily spending wallet that I'm using to buy stuff here at the conference gets compromised, my cold storage remains safe. That's something that should always be top of mind. Lastly, I've been asking you a lot of questions here, and I haven't been giving you a lot of answers. The main reason for that is I want you to understand that you need to understand your setup in order to trust it. If you don't understand it, you can't trust it. A Bitcoin key or a wallet is your ability to keep a secret. And if you can't keep that secret, if it gets leaked by hardware or software, or by you making a mistake, writing it down, you've lost your Bitcoin. So in a very real way, the ability to keep a secret is your Bitcoin, is your wallet. So you are your wallet. Do you think they can ban you? Thank you very much.